Our story begins with a young man who transmigrated into a world where strength is everything, hoping his family status would propel him to the top. But those dreams turned to ash the moment his younger brother was born, surrounded by a divine golden glow that signaled a change in fortune. A heavenly sound echoed, drawing thousands to kneel and worship, and that single moment of reverence instantly boosted the infant's cultivation by 5 levels. Meanwhile, our protagonist's talent was abysmal, a mere trash in the eyes of others, causing all resources and the heirship to go to his brother. Even his arranged marriage was cancelled by the girl's family, a public humiliation that would have broken a lesser man. In his fury, he shouted the classic vow, "The tide turns every 30 years. Do not look down on a youth just because he is poor." After all, transmigration and a broken engagement are the hallmarks of a true protagonist, and he waited for his legendary cheat power to appear. However, nothing happened. Resigned to his fate, he was eventually exiled by his father at age 18 to the remote wind-catching fields. He was forbidden from using the family name, and the only person willing to follow him into exile was his loyal maid, Manhwa. Suddenly, a mechanical voice echoed in his mind, congratulating him for finally becoming a useless failure in the eyes of the world. The daily intelligence system had activated, promising 2 random pieces of information every day. Today's first piece of intel was quite specific. In 3 days, a disciple named Chu Feng would find an ancient primordial beast in the depths of the Hengduan Mountains. As for the second piece of intel, it revealed that inside mystery box number 62 at the Wanbao Chamber of Commerce today, there was a beast medical manual that, if burned, would reveal the heaven-swallowing demon Bao. He practically jumped for joy at the news. An ancient primordial beast, as the name suggests, is a creature from the dawn of time possessing immense and terrifying power. The heaven-swallowing demon Bao, on the other hand, was a cultivation technique that grew stronger by devouring the essence of others. This technique had no specific requirements, meaning anyone could practice it, and every special essence consumed would grant a massive power boost. The practitioner's strength would increase significantly with each theft, though such a method of stealing from others came with a reputation. In the cultivation world, this was considered a path of pure evil, but for a man with nothing, it was his only hope for strength. He made his decision instantly. He would secure the demon Bao first, and then set his sights on the Hengduan Mountains. He reasoned that since the ancient primordial beast wouldn't be discovered for another 3 days, there was no rush to head to the mountains just yet. A little later, he hurried to the Wanbao Chamber of Commerce and immediately instructed the shopkeeper to bring him mystery box number 62. The old shopkeeper smiled as he retrieved the box, remarking on the timing. Apparently, someone else had just been eyeing this very same box. That customer hadn't brought enough money and had left to find more. But hearing this, our protagonist felt a sudden surge of nervous tension. Deep down, he knew the heaven-swallowing demon Bao was inside. If someone else bought it first, this golden opportunity would vanish forever. Fortunately, his timing was perfect. He paid the shopkeeper immediately and tucked the mystery box safely into his storage ring before departing. After finding a secluded spot, he carefully took the box out. With a soft click, the lid popped open to reveal its contents. Inside lay a simple beast medical manual. Following the system's cryptic instructions, he proceeded to set the book on fire. Then, something truly magical happened. As he sifted through the cooling ashes, he pulled out a piece of bone no larger than his palm. He wondered for a moment if it was a fragment of a skull, but as the thought crossed his mind, mysterious runes began to glow upon the bone's surface. The runes transformed into specks of starlight, sinking directly into his forehead. In an instant, the secrets of the heaven-swallowing demon Bao were revealed. The cultivation method was etched into his mind, and he began to practice immediately. As he circulated his energy, the world around him began to react. The essence of heaven and earth within 100 meters poured into his body, forcefully blowing open the gates of his cultivation path. On the following morning, he opened his eyes to find he had reached the 5th level of the body refining realm. He was, quite frankly, stunned. In this world, the path of strength is divided into the body refining, divine burial, spirit sea, and divine palace realms. There are many stages beyond those, and each is divided into 5 levels. Even for a recognized genius, progress is usually measured in years. To reach the peak of the body refining realm typically takes 3 to 5 years of grueling effort. And yet, after practicing his new technique, he had achieved it in a single night. To be perfectly honest, there was no other word for it but extraordinary. A sharp light gleamed in his eyes as he realized that his brother's divine yang physique was a special essence he could eventually devour. If he could consume it, he might break through to the divine burial realm. It seemed the ancient beast would have to wait just a little longer. He decided to devour the essence of the yang physique first. Following the system's guidance, he hurried toward the location. We see a woman in white, sword in hand, desperately chasing a wretched-looking man while shouting "Lecher." She cried out that he wouldn't escape after insulting her junior sister. This man was none other than the notorious Mo Yi. Our protagonist watched from the shadows, observing the chase as it unfolded before him. The woman was Su Qingyuan, a disciple of the Manhwa Palace who had simply been out for a stroll with her sister. They hadn't expected to be targeted by Mo Yi, a predator who had already harmed her poor junior sister. Despite being pursued, Mo Yi didn't seem worried at all. Instead, he kept shouting vulgarities over his shoulder. Su Qingyuan's face turned bright red with rage at his taunts, her sword trembling as she pointed it at the rogue. Just as she prepared to strike, her strength suddenly vanished. She collapsed to the ground, her sword clattering beside her. With what little breath she had left, she asked what he had done. He laughed, explaining it was a special poison. It was a drug designed to strip away inhibitions and spark primal desires. He told her they were about to become lovebirds. Our protagonist stepped in, beginning to refine the essence as pure energy flooded his body. He needed a place to digest this power. But suddenly, the delirious Su Qingyuan reached out and grabbed him, begging for help. He frowned, considering his options. He realized she was suffering from a potent aphrodisiac. If the poison wasn't neutralized, her meridians would shatter, killing her. After a moment's hesitation, he chose to save her. An hour later, his cultivation broke through directly into the divine burial realm. It was, quite frankly, shocking. Devouring just one essence had allowed him to leap entirely into the next major realm. Even his physical constitution felt significantly stronger. To be honest, compared to his past life, he felt like a literal Superman. He looked down at the sleeping Su Qingyuan, left some food for her, and departed. Not long after he had gone, Su Qingyuan slowly opened her eyes. Though her mind had been hazy, she had a faint, lingering impression of what happened. Realizing the rogue hadn't succeeded and that someone had saved her, she dressed quickly, only to discover something unexpected. She realized her cultivation realm had actually broken through. Originally at the divine burial realm, she had now stepped into the spirit sea realm. Before she could even process her shock, Su Qingyuan saw the snacks on the ground. Her heart flared with rage, wondering what he took her for. She vowed to never let him go. Meanwhile, our protagonist had already arrived at the Hengduan Mountains, following the system's precise directions. Sure enough, at the foot of the mountain, he discovered a beast egg. It was about the size of an adult's fist with a pale green shell. When his fingers lightly brushed against it, he could even feel a faint, steady pulse. He carefully examined this peculiar, ancient egg. It looked as though it was about to hatch at any moment. To speed up the process, he placed some snacks beside the egg as an offering. Then, he cut his palm and let his blood drip onto the shell, ensuring the ancient hatchling inside would remember his scent forever. Not long after, a soft click echoed through the air. The top of the shell peeled away, revealing a small head covered in golden red down. A moment later, the shell shattered completely. The little beast flapped its wings and stood up, tilting its head to look at him curiously. Suddenly, it shook its body, and as its golden red feathers unfurled, they actually stirred up a powerful wind. He gasped in genuine surprise. It appeared to be a hatchling of the windtail eagle. It hopped onto his shoulder and affectionately rubbed its head against his cheek. He knit his brows in thought, wondering what to call it. Taidan, Suehua? To be honest, naming things was never his strongest suit. The windtail eagle grew anxious hearing his suggestions and began gesturing wildly. He tried to decipher what the little creature was trying to say. It seemed to be saying it would grow up to be incredibly powerful, an overlord of the skies, and therefore wanted the name Tianba. The little eagle nodded immediately. He looked at it tenderly and agreed that Tianba it would be, as long as the little one was happy. By the time the naming was settled, darkness had already fallen. He decided to rest for the night before setting out again the next morning. The following day, the system delivered its report right on time. We see the first piece of intelligence for the day appear. By arranging mysterious runes in a specific order, one could obtain the Human King seal. The exact sequence was just a click away. The second piece of intelligence revealed an ancient tomb at Mount Diu, which was currently being excavated by the Earth Dragon Gang. A map of the tomb was provided. Looking at these two pieces of information, he felt a surge of excitement at the possibilities ahead. The Human King seal is an exceptionally powerful cultivation technique, especially once one reaches the stage of great success. Its power is enough to shatter heaven and earth. Since he had a map of that ancient tomb, he figured it was worth a try. But first, he had to get his hands on the mountain treasure. As he entered the Hengduan Mountains, he saw traces of battle everywhere. Knowing his own strength was still lacking, he moved with extreme caution, avoiding other cultivators. After all, as we know, other cultivators can be far more dangerous than even the most ferocious beasts. Step by step, he approached the treasure's location. Suddenly, two middle-aged men approached from a distance. His heart tightened when he realized they were both Spirit Sea Realm experts. The younger of the two spoke up, complaining that the treasure was hidden so deeply they still hadn't found it. He wondered if someone else had already snatched it, but the older man was certain that a spiritual object would cause a stir if moved. The older man insisted they keep looking, and so the two set off again. To be honest, this was a timely warning for our protagonist. He realized that once he took the treasure, he would need to disguise himself immediately to avoid being discovered. Once the two men were gone, he hurried to the exact spot. With the system's guidance, finding it was almost too easy. There it was, a piece of lightning-struck wood. To an untrained eye, it looked like nothing more than a withered tree root. He touched it gently, amazed that such a plain object was the mountain treasure. Without wasting a second, he began to dig. The moment the lightning-struck wood was fully unearthed, a pillar of light suddenly shot straight into the sky. A lifelike dragon shadow manifested in the air, instantly drawing the attention of every treasure hunter in the vicinity. As everyone rushed toward the light, he quickly stashed the treasure in his storage ring and hid in a secluded spot. He knew that running away now would only arouse suspicion. His plan was to wait for the crowd to arrive first. He would pretend he had just arrived and blend in with the large group. By now, a massive crowd of cultivators had gathered. Even the two brothers from earlier were there, slapping their thighs in regret. Then, a grim-faced middle-aged man stepped forward. He felt a wave of dread. This man was radiating the overwhelming pressure of the divine burial realm. Many of the gathered cultivators immediately recognized the middle-aged man as Chu Xian, a rogue cultivator with a formidable reputation. Chu Xian spoke with a cold, commanding voice, telling everyone to be quiet before asking if anyone had seen someone fleeing the mountains. The crowd looked at one another and shook their heads in unison, confirming that no one had been seen leaving after the treasure appeared. Chu Xian's sharp gaze swept across the group as he concluded that the thief was still among them, demanding to know who took it. He warned them to hand it over now, threatening that if he had to find it himself, he wouldn't be so merciful. 15 minutes passed. Still, no one stepped forward. Our protagonist watched from a shadowed corner, knowing full well that nobody here was foolish enough to confess. To be honest, giving up such a treasure would be madness. Chu Xian's face darkened as he ordered everyone to hand over their storage rings. He intended to search every single person. Suddenly, he shot a meaningful look toward the perimeter, signaling his hidden accomplice. Another divine burial realm expert instantly unleashed a terrifying pressure, effectively pinning down every cultivator in the clearing. This move sparked immediate outrage, as no one expected two such powerful masters to have formed a secret alliance beforehand. His brow furrowed deeply. He knew he couldn't just sit and wait for death. Quietly, he began to circulate the heaven-swallowing magic art. Then, he shouted at the top of his lungs, warning the crowd that the experts intended to rob them all and urging everyone to run. The cultivators scattered in a blind panic. Seeing his prey escaping, Chu Xian and his ally immediately began a ruthless slaughter. Taking advantage of the absolute chaos, he pushed himself to the limit to escape. Fortunately, the heaven-swallowing magic art helped him. It masked his aura, making him nearly invisible to the killers. Amidst the screams of battle, he finally broke free from the mountains. But he didn't dare stop. After fleeing for a full hour, he finally allowed himself to collapse under a large tree to catch his breath. He panted heavily, realizing just how close he had come to disaster. He hadn't expected such powerful experts to be lurking there. Still, the mountain treasure was finally his. Unsure of his current location, he pulled out a map to get his bearings. His eyes lit up when he saw he was near Xinian village. Since he was so close, he decided it was the perfect time to find the stone tablet. And so, he set off for Xinian village, a simple mountain hamlet where the people lived quietly by farming and hunting. We see that days of torrential rain have triggered a devastating mudslide. While it spared the village itself, the farmland was utterly destroyed. This disaster cut off the villagers' livelihood, prompting a nearby Taoist temple to send help, which is how they discovered the ancient stone tablet. Upon arriving at Xinian village, he encountered a group of Taoists, the younger ones completely captivated by the mysterious runes on the stone. Only the elder Taoist noticed him, offering a polite greeting and asking what business a strategist had in a village recently struck by disaster. With a look of deep sorrow, he replied that he was merely passing through and hoped for a cup of water, having no idea of the tragedy. The elder Taoist warmly invited him to stay at the Qingfeng temple instead, showing a level of hospitality that was quite rare these days. He smiled and politely declined, steering the conversation toward the stone by mentioning he had to keep moving but was curious about the crowd. He asked what they were looking at, and the elder Taoist, hiding nothing, explained the situation with complete sincerity. They had come to help and realized this very tablet had saved Xinian village, noting that the runes upon it were incredibly mysterious. The elder Taoist sensed he was a fellow cultivator and suggested that if he were curious, he should try to meditate on its secrets. He was genuinely surprised by the old man's honesty. Such a broad-minded nature was certainly not something one found in just anyone. Expressing his gratitude, he approached the tablet and saw that it was covered in a dense, complex web of hundreds of runic imprints. Hidden among them was the seal of the human king, a technique that would be nearly impossible for an ordinary cultivator to decipher alone. Fortunately, he had his system to master the rules of the runes, and after only half an hour of intense focus, something changed. A sudden hum echoed in his mind, like a silent explosion, as three majestic words appeared: the seal of the human king. In that moment, the true history of the stone tablet was revealed to him, stretching back through the long mists of time. Thousands of years ago, the human king had many enemies. To protect his descendants from retribution after his death, he took a drastic step. He severed all karmic ties with his lineage, causing the once glorious clan of the human king to gradually fade into obscurity. Most importantly, he realized that only a true descendant of the human king could ever hope to comprehend this sacred seal. He couldn't help but marvel at the fact that this humble village held such a bloodline, and he silently thanked the predecessor for the inheritance. He vowed that he would never mistreat the descendants of the human king, and with that, he went directly to find the village chief of Xinian. He asked the chief to gather all the villagers together, wasting no time in announcing that he knew of the disaster that had struck Xinian village. Expressing his deep sorrow, he told them he had some gold, silver, and food that he would now distribute to every single villager. He asked everyone to line up to receive their share, knowing full well that these riches were worth far less than the seal of the human king. But it was everything he could offer in the moment, and suddenly, the lifeless eyes of the villagers began to glow with a spark of hope. They all knelt to offer their thanks, some even weeping with emotion, while the old Taoist bowed deeply to show his own gratitude. He quickly helped them up, telling them there was no need for such gestures, and spent some time speaking with the villagers before moving on. By the time he left Xinian village and returned to Goofing City, the sky had already turned dark, and he immediately took out the Thunder Chicken wood. We see him observing the miraculous sight before him. Just as Wan Yuan noticed his return, her face instantly lighting up with a look of pleasant surprise. However, when her gaze fell upon the charred, blackened wood, she frowned in confusion and remarked that he had finally returned. She asked why on earth he had brought back a bunch of dead tree roots, forcing him to explain that this was Thunder Chicken wood, not mere scrap. He assured her it was incredibly useful, then quickly changed the subject by asking if dinner was ready, which, naturally, distracted Wan Yuan immediately. She told him she had prepared a new dish just for him and warned him not to overeat before heading off to finish the cooking. As she hurried away to the kitchen, he watched her go, left alone with his thoughts and his mysterious prize. He tried to examine the piece of Thunder Chicken wood again, but with no new results. He returned to his room to cultivate, yet he was unaware of what was happening. The willow branch sprouting from the Thunder Chicken wood began to emit a soft, gentle light that gradually enveloped his entire small courtyard. Meanwhile, the Wind Thunder Eagle he had brought back built a small nest right next to the wood, its clever little eyes full of curiosity. The night passed quickly, and as dawn broke, the familiar voice of the system echoed in his mind to deliver the day's intelligence. The first piece of news: the Wanbao Chamber of Commerce would restock their mystery boxes this afternoon, and box number 36 contained a thin parchment scroll. Once exposed to sunlight, this scroll would reveal the cultivation method for the secret of the Xing character. And then, the second piece of intelligence. The second update: Yisha, the young master of the Nine Desires evil sect who possesses the 10-grained gauze body, will pass through Goofing City tomorrow after a challenge. We see him react with immediate shock at the mention of the Xing character secret, which is one of the legendary 9 secrets of cultivation. Once mastered, it grants the practitioner the greatest speed in the world, and it just so happens that young master Yisha is the perfect target. This was essentially a gift of experience delivered right to his door, so he quickly decided that since the mystery box wouldn't arrive until the afternoon, he would head to the ancient tomb at Dayu Mountain first to make a fortune. After all, he was short on cash, and this opportunity was too good to pass up. Half an hour later, he arrived at Dayu Mountain, but the moment he stepped onto the grounds, he sensed movement coming from right behind him. He immediately hid in the nearby woods, watching as 2 suspicious figures crawled out from a freshly dug tunnel in the earth. One of them, a man with a surprisingly clean face, complained loudly that the tomb was a complete labyrinth and they had been there far too long. They still hadn't found the main burial chamber, and his dusty companion agreed, noting that the place was filled with far too many deadly traps. Many of their men had already been lost, leaving them unsure if they should even continue, until a joyful voice suddenly echoed from deep within the tunnel. The voice shouted that they had found the correct path to the main chamber, prompting the Earth Dragon Gang leader, Lu Biao, to rush back underground. Seeing this, our protagonist moved into action. Since he held the actual map of the tomb, he didn't need to use their crude, hand-dug tunnel. Instead, he made his way to a small mountain stream and jumped directly into the water, knowing a secret passage to the tomb lay hidden beneath the surface. He soon reached the main burial chamber, where a massive stone coffin hung, suspended in midair by 4 heavy, rusted iron chains. The surface of the coffin was entirely covered in suppression runes, and even the walls surrounding the chamber were draped in countless yellow paper talismans. He stared at the exaggerated scene before him, and for a moment, a cold shiver of unease ran down his spine. He couldn't help but wonder if the corpse inside was about to reanimate, especially since the room held nothing but these ominous seals against evil. Frowning, he looked toward the stone coffin. He had come all this way, and he certainly wasn't planning on leaving empty-handed. Hoping fervently that the body wouldn't turn into a restless spirit, he jumped onto the stone coffin and forced the heavy lid open. A thick, fragrant scent suddenly wafted out from within the coffin, and deep down, he felt his heart begin to race with nervous anticipation. Normally, a stone coffin should smell of decay, but the fragrant scent he encountered was, to be honest, deeply unsettling and completely unnatural. We see that inside the coffin lies a woman in a red robe, her features as delicate and exquisite as a fine painting. One could easily imagine her beauty in life, yet the most terrifying detail was the corpse-suppressing talisman stuck firmly to her forehead. He swallowed hard, realizing he was likely dealing with a powerful spirit, and nervously wiped the cold sweat from his brow. Still, his eyes couldn't help but drift toward the storage ring on her finger as he whispered a soft apology to the silent figure. He told himself he was just a bit short on cash and needed to borrow the ring, quickly sliding it off her finger with practiced ease. After that, he hurriedly closed the lid and rushed out of the burial chamber without looking back. A short while later, the room was no longer empty. The doors were pushed open again as the Earth Dragon gang burst in, immediately noticing that the heavy stone lid had been moved. Ignoring the warning signs of the yellow paper talismans, they surrounded the coffin, and their leader, Lu Biao, jumped right on top of it. He shoved the lid aside, and upon seeing the woman's corpse, Lu Biao instinctively swallowed hard and reached out his hand. He began to pull back the red robe to examine the perfectly preserved body, but at that exact moment, the atmosphere shifted. A sudden, chilling wind swept through the chamber, and the talisman on the woman's forehead eerily burst into flames, turning to ash in seconds. The woman in red snapped her eyes open, and Lu Biao, his soul nearly leaving his body from fright, turned to flee in a blind panic. But an icy hand had already pierced through his back, crushing his heart before he could even let out a single scream. His body withered and shriveled instantly, a sight that, quite naturally, sent the rest of the gang into a state of absolute terror. They scrambled to escape the chamber, but in the end, none of them could outrun their fate. After the woman had finished them all, she slowly raised her hand to touch the spot where her ring used to be, her crimson eyes fixed on the direction where our protagonist had vanished. By now, he had returned to his small courtyard and begun to inspect the woman's storage ring, and what he found inside left him utterly stunned. The space was 100 cubic meters, filled with spirit stones piled like mountains, along with rare dragon saliva and spiritual jade water. He gently sprinkled a fist-sized portion of the rare earth around the lightning-struck wood, and we see the withered branch give a sudden, rhythmic tremble. A majestic surge of life force erupted from the soil, and we see the half-meter willow branch begin to grow with incredible speed. In the blink of an eye, it extended to over a meter. Then, quite unexpectedly, a section snapped off and transformed into a verdant bracelet. It slid onto his wrist of its own accord, and he couldn't help but smile, wondering if this was a gift of gratitude from the wood. After that, he took out the dragon saliva and carefully fed it to the wind thunder eagle resting nearby, knowing its immense nourishing power. After drinking every drop, the young eagle looked as though it were stumbling drunk before falling into a deep, heavy sleep on the ground. Its body grew at a visible rate as its feathers took on a metallic luster. Finally, he decided to drink the spiritual jade water himself. The warm, yet surging spiritual energy dissolved within him, and he immediately began to circulate the heaven-swallowing demon gong technique. He guided this power through his limbs and meridians, knowing that while ordinary cultivators might waste such energy, he would not. The heaven-swallowing technique refined every drop, and his cultivation naturally broke through to the first level of the spirit sea realm. It was only now that he felt he had truly opened the door to cultivation, even though the bottle was still mostly full. Just then, Manhwa came out to call him for dinner. Sensing the subtle changes in him, her mind began to race with unspoken thoughts. Tears began to fall uncontrollably, and seeing her red-rimmed eyes, he asked with concern why she was crying. Manhwa choked back a sob, explaining that she was simply happy for him and hoped he would one day prove his true worth. She wanted the world to know he was no useless failure, and moved by her words, he immediately pulled her into a comforting embrace. He promised her that day would come. After all, they were so close that it would be strange if she hadn't noticed his progress. Yet, Manhwa asked for no explanations, wishing only for his success, a gesture that, to be honest, touched him deeply. After finishing his lunch, he headed to the Wanbao Chamber of Commerce, where the old treasurer and his assistants were busy at work. They were arranging mystery boxes on the shelves, and he stepped up to the counter immediately to request box number 36. The treasurer smiled and asked him to wait a moment, just as a figure with bloodshot eyes burst into the shop. This was Zhao Hu, the man who had gone to raise funds earlier. He called out to the old treasurer in a rough, booming voice. Zhao Hu demanded to know if a new batch of mystery boxes had arrived, shouting that he wanted numbers 10, 36, and 52 immediately. The old treasurer looked quite troubled as he explained that while the others were available, the timing for number 36 was rather unfortunate. He noted that the box had already been purchased by another customer, but as he moved to hand it over, Zhao Hu stepped in to stop him. The man insisted those boxes were his personal picks, containing his lucky numbers, and he was certain one of them held a true treasure. He declared he simply had to have number 36 and told the young man to pick something else, giving him a dismissive glance. Without waiting for an answer, he reached out, intending to snatch the box right out of the treasurer's hands. He seemed determined that no one would take it. Deep down, our protagonist wanted to snap back that the hang's secret was inside that specific box. He knew the other boxes held nothing of the sort, but he decided to keep quiet, not wanting to expose the existence of the secret technique. Fury was written all over Zhao Hu's face, and just as a conflict seemed inevitable, the old treasurer stepped in to smooth things over. Forcing down his anger, Zhao muttered that he would show respect to the Wanbao Chamber of Commerce. After all, they were a power he couldn't offend. Since the treasurer had offered him a way to save face, he naturally took the opportunity to back down and retreat gracefully. The young man gave Zhao one cold, lingering look before turning to leave. With his current strength, the man was no longer a threat. He didn't give Zhao another thought as he left the merchant guild and began heading straight back home. He was eager to begin practicing the hang's secret, but suddenly, a familiar, delicate fragrance caught his attention, and time itself seemed to freeze. Even the dust in the air hung motionless as he stood paralyzed. There, standing directly before him, was a woman in a crimson robe. She was the very same woman from the stone coffin in the ancient tomb, and a chill ran down his spine as he realized she was alive. An icy hand came to rest silently on his shoulder, and the terrifying sensation of death made his skin crawl with pure dread. Right at that moment, the willow branch bracelet on his wrist began to glow with a soft, pulsing green light. A second later, time resumed its flow, and the noise of the bustling crowds and horses rushed back into his ears as he snapped out of it. The woman in red had vanished without a trace, leaving him standing alone in the middle of the busy, crowded street. We see him scanning the crowd desperately for the woman in the crimson robe, but she is nowhere to be found. He wonders if it was all just a hallucination. Deep down, he fears he is being hunted by that female corpse, so he suppresses his unease and begins the heavy-footed walk back to his small courtyard. He doesn't notice that from a secluded alleyway, the woman in red is watching his retreating back, her brow furrowed in deep concentration. The hand she had used to touch his shoulder looks as if it has been severely burned, having turned completely into charred charcoal. Her eyes remain locked onto him as he walks away. A moment later, she vanishes like a ghost, quietly tailing him through the streets. It isn't until she sees him push open his gate and enter the courtyard, which is shrouded in a faint, glowing aura, that her expression suddenly shifts. Overcome by an unmistakable look of terror, the woman recoils 2 steps and quickly retreats into the deep shadows of the alley. Once safely inside, he can't wait to pull out the thin parchment and hold it up to the sunlight, letting the rays pass through the surface. Gradually, lines of flowing, dark gold runes begin to emerge. This is the cultivation technique for the legendary Hang's secret. He commits the patterns of the runes to memory, then closes his eyes to focus his mind and begin practicing the technique in earnest. It is said that at its peak, the Hang's secret allows one to outrun the river of time itself, a useful skill for any traveler, to be sure. With this, he'll have the confidence to either chase down powerful enemies or escape dangerous situations, and so, the next morning arrives. The mechanical voice of the system rings out again, revealing that the child of fortune, Yun Chun, will arrive in Goofing City tomorrow. The intel claims he will find a piece of jade worth a fortune at a specific stall. The location is ready for him to check. The second piece of news involves a master thief named by Xiaoze, who recently stole a teleportation charm for the Lingxi secret realm. A smile spreads across his face as he processes this. After all, if Yun Chun is a child of fortune, his taste in jade must be extraordinary. He realizes that if he simply follows Yun Chun, he might be able to keep reaping the rewards of the other man's luck. As for the Lingxi secret realm, it's a legendary place filled with opportunities, usually gatekept by several powerful factions. The geniuses of those factions often possess special constitutions, which, for our protagonist, represents a perfect opportunity to grow stronger. He decides he must obtain that teleportation charm, but first, he has a far more pressing matter to attend to. We see that his target is the food supplement malevolent physique of the 9-Jade evil sect's young master. Soon, he spots 2 figures on the street. The younger one is the young master, Yisha, while the elder is his guardian, Old Mo. Our protagonist considers stepping forward immediately. However, for some unknown reason, the pair suddenly begins walking quickly toward the city gates, forcing him to suppress his urge to strike. With his current strength at the first level of the Spirit Sea realm, defeating Yisha is easy, but the guardian is another story entirely. To deal with Yisha, he realizes he must separate the 2 first, and so, he begins to follow them quietly from the shadows. As they leave the city and the path grows more secluded, he prepares to act, until Old Mo suddenly freezes in his tracks. As if sensing a great danger, the old man bolts in the opposite direction without looking back, leaving a pale-faced Yisha behind. The young master begins to flee in a blind panic as well. To be honest, the situation is becoming quite confusing for everyone involved. He wonders if some powerful enemy is about to strike them, or if this is simply a stroke of incredibly good luck. Realizing a threat is near, Yisha's eyes flash with murderous intent as he screams arrogantly at the empty air around him. He shouts that he is the young master of the 9-Jade evil sect, asking who would dare attack him, a fatal mistake, naturally. Yisha draws a crimson warblade and strikes out, letting a wave of blood-red malevolent energy swallow the ground before him. Our protagonist merely snorts coldly and quickly forms the Human King seal, sending a golden palm print crashing down from the heavens. Under the weight of the human king's seal, the blood energy is utterly shattered, and Yisha is sent flying by the golden impact. He slams violently into the earth, coughing up blood as the sound of his breaking bones echoes through the quiet clearing. As Yisha struggles to ask who he is, our protagonist wastes no breath on words and simply steps forward to end it. He quickly leaves the scene, knowing the commotion from the battle will surely draw the attention of nearby cultivators very soon. Retreating is the only logical choice, and before long, he finds a secluded mountain cave to serve as a temporary refuge. It doesn't take long for him to refine the malevolent physique. Inside him, his spiritual power surges as his cultivation barriers begin to shatter. When he finally opens his eyes, he is pleasantly surprised to find he has reached the 5th level of the Spirit Sea realm. He notes that he is still lagging far behind Tongbei Tianjiao, but with the system's help, he can certainly close that gap and even surpass him. After that, he leaves the cave to track by Zia's location. 10 days have passed, and night falls over a ruined temple on Dayu Mountain. Inside, we find Bai Xiaozhe teaching the art of thievery to his disciples, who are all listening with absolute, undivided attention. Suddenly, a clever young boy speaks up, asking if they might see the treasure his master supposedly stole earlier that day. With a proud smile, Bai Xiaozhe pulls out a blue talisman and waves it before his students, eager to show off his latest prize. He tells them it is time to broaden their horizons, explaining that this is a teleportation charm for a secret realm. He claims that anyone holding it can enter the realm, but before he can finish, a blur of motion flashes right before his eyes. When he looks down, the talisman is gone. Naturally, he flies into a rage and gives chase without a second thought. However, the dark shadow is impossibly fast. Despite pushing his speed to the limit, the distance between them only continues to grow. Stopping to catch his breath, Bai Xiaozhe mutters that while the thief is fast, stealing from a master thief like him is simply not allowed. He takes a deep breath and lunges forward like a bolt of lightning, determined to reclaim what was taken from his very hands. Yet, even at that speed, he cannot catch so much as a glimpse of his target, watching helplessly as the shadow vanishes completely. At this point, Bai Xiaozhe begins to question his entire life. He is a legendary thief, yet he has been utterly outclassed in speed. Gritting his teeth, he swears that if he ever catches this person, he will make sure they regret crossing him. However, when he returns to the ruined temple, he finds his young disciples gathered around something with very serious expressions. He demands to know where all these spirit stones came from, just as the clever boy approaches to welcome him back. The boy explains that right after he chased the shadow, a storage bag suddenly appeared on the table containing 3,000 spirit stones. There was also a note left behind, which the boy hands over. Bai Xiaozhe takes it and reads the single line of text written there. The note states that the Lingxi Secret Realm talisman has been taken, and these stones are meant as fair compensation. Bai Xiaozhe's feelings are quite complicated. He wonders if he was truly that easy to outrun, but in the end, he decides to let it go. He decides that losing the teleportation charm isn't the end of the world, as the compensation made the deal quite fair. By this time, he has already returned to his small courtyard with the Lingxi Secret Realm charm safely tucked away to wait. The night passes quickly, and the next morning's first piece of intelligence reveals that the Void Realm will descend at noon today. By chanting Void Realm in his mind, he can log in. More detailed information is available with just a simple click. The second piece of news mentions that in the Great Wilderness, over 50,000 miles away, the precious yellow blood grass has matured. He raises an eyebrow and clicks for the specific location, but as he reads the details of the Void Realm, his surprise grows. This Void Realm functions much like a virtual network where cultivators can gather to trade, communicate, and even practice their skills. To understand how it truly works, he'll have to experience it firsthand, though the second piece of news leaves him momentarily speechless. The Great Wilderness is tens of thousands of miles away. Forget 3 days, he couldn't reach it even in 30. A bit inconvenient, really. Suddenly, his eyes light up with a new idea. If he cannot claim the treasure himself, he can use the Void Realm instead. He decides to sell this information for a high price at noon, but first, he must move quickly to beat someone else to the punch. He needs to reach the ancient jade, valued at over 100,000 stones, before the favored child of fortune, Yun Chun, can get there. We see him arrive at a small stall where a bearded vendor is busily arranging his wares, and he spots the jade immediately. Suppressing his inner excitement, he asks the price. The bearded man looks him up and down before giving a casual answer. The vendor asked for 510. He immediately looked shocked and began to haggle, wondering if the man was trying to rob him. He asked if anything here was even real, offering a mere 5 and 10. The bearded vendor's expression shifted instantly as he agreed to the deal. The vendor claimed he just wanted to make his first sale of the day and asked for the money. He gave a small smile, scratching his head in amusement. Stealing the protagonist's luck seemed almost too easy, but he didn't overthink it, paying the 10 credits without a second thought. The bearded vendor took the money and handed over the ancient jade, a look of pure satisfaction spreading across his face. Deep down, he was equally thrilled. He never imagined this jade, worth over 100,000, would fall into his hands so easily. He turns and leaves the stall, and just at that moment, a young man happens to brush past him. This is none other than the child of fortune, Yun-chun, who approaches the bearded vendor to begin his search. Finding no trace of the ancient jade, Yun-chun hurriedly questions the vendor, only to learn it has already been sold. His expression shifts instantly. After all, he had come to Goofing City specifically for that soul-nourishing jade. He needed it to sustain the weakening remnant soul of his master, but someone else had beaten him to it. Unwilling to give up, Yun-chun pulls out 20 credits and presses the vendor for a description of the buyer. The bearded man gives a rough description, but after wandering all around Goofing City, Yun-chun finds nothing. Naturally, he is quite frustrated by the situation, but just then, something unexpected happens. The ring on Yun-chun's finger begins to glow faintly, and a pleasant, mature female voice echoes in his mind. This is his master, Shun Xinglan, who tells him not to be angry just because the jade is gone. She assures him she can hold on a bit longer, as the Lingxi secret realm will open soon with new opportunities. She notes that great fortunes await him there, but for now, they must leave this city shrouded in ghostly energy. Yun-chun nods in agreement and quickly departs Goofing City. Meanwhile, we return to our protagonist back at home. He begins researching the jade and soon confirms through ancient texts that it is indeed a soul-nourishing treasure. He is quietly stunned by this pleasant surprise. No wonder the system valued it at over 100,000 stones. Suddenly, a profound and mysterious voice thunders through his mind, announcing that the Void Realm has descended. As cultivators are welcome to log in, he places 100 spirit stones beside him and chants the command. When he opens his eyes again, he finds himself standing in the middle of a vast, open plaza. Before long, the plaza is filled with a dense crowd of cultivators, each of them draped in mysterious black robes. Their faces are obscured as if blurred out. He smiles, thinking this setting is quite perfect for keeping his privacy. He realizes that no one can uncover his true identity here, and soon, several clever cultivators seize the business opportunity to set up stalls right on the spot. In an instant, the plaza becomes a bustling market filled with shouting vendors. So he clears his throat and yells that he has news regarding the yellow bloodgrass. He announces the information is valid for only 2 days, and as his words fall, the surrounding crowd of vendors and cultivators suddenly goes silent. They all turn to look at him in complete shock, and one particularly eager cultivator steps forward to press him for more details. With a calm expression, he replies that the price is 10,000 spirit stones, and he reiterates that the news is only guaranteed for 2 days. The cultivator immediately tries to haggle, hoping to lower the steep price for just a bit of information. As the crowd joins in the protest, he can't help but chuckle at the absurdity. After all, the price is only this low because it is merely news of the herb. He tells them that if it were the actual medicine, 1,000,000 stones wouldn't be enough, before sharply ordering everyone to be quiet. The price is 10,000 stones with no room for negotiation, and though the crowd is furious at his bluntness, they have no choice but to listen. There is nothing they can do, really. This is the Void Realm where everything is virtual, and they can't even discern his physical build, let alone his identity. Just then, a mysterious figure draped in black robes approaches him, interested in the deal. He gives a solemn guarantee that the news is genuine, even as the figure in black offers a stern warning against any deception. The robed man eventually hands over the spirit stones, and in exchange, he reveals everything he knows about the location of the yellow bloodgrass. A moment later, the figure of the black-robed man begins to fade, likely logging out of the Void Realm, leaving our protagonist to head toward his next destination. He makes his way to the most mysterious area of the Void Realm, known as the Eternal Dream Zone, a place where cultivators can dream freely. It allows them to practice within their dreams, and more importantly, the flow of time between reality and this dream state is quite remarkable. The ratio is roughly 1 to 12, but the truly magical part is that the Eternal Dream Zone actually consists of 4 distinct layers of dreaming. In the first 3 layers, each level's time flow is 12 times faster than the one above it, though the 4th layer remains a complete mystery. It is said that no one has ever reached it, and since the effects of each layer vary, the cost in spirit stones increases significantly for each level. He sighs, realizing he will need to gather far more spirit stones if he wants to spend his days searching for opportunities like this. Cultivating while asleep during the night is, quite frankly, a perfect arrangement, so we watch as he enters the first layer of the dream realm. This time, he focuses his training on his movement techniques to increase his speed until the system suddenly issues a new broadcast. The first piece of intel reveals that the Lingxi secret realm will officially open tomorrow, and the favored child of fortune, Yun-chun, is destined to obtain phoenix blood there. But the news doesn't stop there, as a second piece of intelligence appears on the screen. It seems a cultivator named Chu Xian has committed murder to steal a moon-glazed fruit and is currently suffering from severe injuries. He is hiding in a secret location to recover, and as our protagonist looks at the first report, he can't help but feel a sense of irony. Deep down, he is impressed. It seems being a child of fortune truly pays off if one can simply stumble upon phoenix blood. However, since he now possesses this knowledge, that phoenix blood belongs to him. As for the second report regarding Chu Xian, he remembers the man all too clearly. Back in the Hengduan Mountains, Chu Xian had been incredibly arrogant, relying on his high cultivation. He had demanded to inspect every cultivator's storage ring, and if our hero hadn't used his heaven-swallowing demonic art to escape in the chaos, he would have lost his treasures and likely his life. Now that the man is a wounded fugitive, he sees no reason to be merciful. He clicks on Chu Xian's coordinates and sets off immediately, seeking both revenge and the moon-glazed fruit the man is carrying. It is exactly the treasure he needs. If he can refine it, he might finally step into the divine power realm. Meanwhile, Chu Xian is being hunted by the giant spirit gang, and in his weakened state, he is far too frail to fight back. He is forced to hide in a secluded cave to treat his wounds, and after a long while, his condition finally begins to stabilize. Chu Xian grinds his teeth in anger, muttering that the giant spirit gang will pay dearly once he is fully recovered. Seeing that his injuries have settled slightly, he struggles to his feet, desperate to leave this place as quickly as possible. But at that very moment, a dark shadow flickers past like a ghost, and Chu Xian has absolutely no time to react. He is sent flying by a violent force, his back slamming hard against the rock wall, causing his recently closed wounds to reopen. The intense pain nearly causes him to black out as he coughs up a mouthful of blood, looking utterly defeated. Struggling to maintain a defensive stance, he demands to know who this intruder is, but our hero doesn't bother answering and simply kicks him away. He follows up with a relentless barrage of punches until Chu Xian is beaten beyond recognition and finally begins to beg for mercy. The wounded man realizes this isn't a member of the giant spirit gang and asks what grudge they share, prompting our protagonist to finally stop. He decides to let the man die with some clarity, revealing that he is the one who took the mountain treasure back in the Hengduan Mountains. He explains he has come specifically to take his life today, and before the man can react, he punches directly through Chu Xian's heart. Chu Xian's face is filled with pure rage as he realizes who stole the treasure, but he doesn't get the chance to finish his sentence. The light fades from his eyes completely, and after quickly taking the storage ring, our hero leaves the scene without a single look back. Back at home, he searches through the spoils of his victory and, sure enough, finds the moon-glazed fruit he was looking for. Legend says that consuming even half of this fruit can cleanse worldly impurities and help a cultivator overcome their inner demons. It makes one's spiritual energy flow as smoothly as moonlight, so without a moment's hesitation, he consumes the entire fruit at once. He enters a meditative state, and after a long while, a cold yet majestic, mysterious power begins to radiate from deep within his body. Suddenly, a powerful shockwave echoes through his mind, signaling a profound change in his very being. The moon-glazed fruit is truly a remarkable treasure, as it allows him to advance directly to the first level of the divine power realm. After more training in the dream realm, we arrive at the next day, the official opening of the Lingxi secret realm. Anyone possessing a teleportation talisman can enter the realm, and we see the first piece of today's intelligence appear on the screen. It reveals that Chu Feng, a disciple of the Jiuhua sword sect, will obtain the Great Eye Divine Art on the second floor of the secret realm. The location is marked for him, while a second report mentions Ling Chenchao, a genius from the Palace of Evil who possesses the extinction demon body. This rival is destined to find the remains of a saint body at the lowest level of the realm, and seeing the first report, our hero smiles. It seems he's crossed paths with Chu Feng before, having already beaten him to the ancient longevity pill in their previous encounter. Meeting him again can only be described as bad luck for Chu Feng, especially since the Palace of Evil is a sworn enemy of the Ling family. He recalls how, back when his natural talents were still considered low, the Palace of Evil never missed a chance to mock and attack him. Furthermore, this Ling Chenchao had once humiliated him deeply, and if his family elders hadn't arrived just in time, he might have died at Chenxiao's hands long ago, causing a cold smile to play on his lips as he whispers the rival's name. He is determined that as long as he is around, things will go very differently this time. A signal reminds the gathered cultivators that the Lingxi secret realm is open, and our hero promptly activates his teleportation talisman with his spiritual power. When he opens his eyes again, we find him in a mountain forest where ancient, towering trees reach toward the sky. It looks much like the outside world, but he doesn't dare linger, knowing he must beat the child of 7 fortunes, Yin Chun, to the phoenix blood, and soon a withered forest of wudong trees appears before him. The trees are charred and leafless, leaving the entire grove feeling deathly still and devoid of any life, which he notes to himself. It seems he has found the right place. This is indeed the wudong forest where a true phoenix once resided. Though it is now completely withered, after searching for a moment, he finally stops beneath the thickest wudong tree. There, he discovers a single drop of blood suspended in midair, glowing with a crimson hue and shimmering with golden light. Inside the droplet, the faint phantom of a phoenix appears, radiating a thin thread of vitality, the legendary true phoenix blood. Suppressing his excitement, he produces a jade bottle to carefully collect it before quickly making his departure. He intends to find a secluded spot to refine the blood, while a moment later, Yunshin arrives to find only an empty clearing. His expression turns incredibly sour as he slams a fist into a charred tree trunk in a fit of pure rage. He vows that whoever stole the phoenix blood will pay dearly, though our hero is currently unaware of this outburst. By now, he has found a hidden cave, and after setting up a simple concealment array, he sits cross-legged and brings out the blood. Taking a deep breath, he swallows the phoenix blood, sending it down toward the sea of energy in his dantian. The thumb-sized droplet begins to emit a terrifyingly scorching heat, causing fine beads of sweat to break out across his forehead. His face twists in agony, yet he doesn't retreat for a second, knowing the phoenix blood is a rare treasure of heaven and earth. His bones begin to shimmer with a faint golden light as his flesh undergoes a true rebirth, a process that lasts for an unknown amount of time. Once the final trace of the phoenix blood's power is fully refined, his body erupts with a surge of overwhelming, tyrannical energy. The shockwave causes loose stones to tumble from the cave walls, and to his delight, he finds he has reached the 4th level of the divine power realm. His natural recovery speed has reached an astonishing level. Now, ordinary flesh wounds would likely heal in the blink of an eye. Though he is pleased, he doesn't dare linger, as the great eye divine sense is still waiting for him on the 2nd level of the Lingxi secret realm. As he makes his way toward the entrance of the 2nd level, the sound of a violent struggle nearby catches his attention. Approaching quietly, we see the child of fortune, Yunshin, facing off against 2 rogue cultivators in a small forest clearing. The 2 cultivators are visibly furious, claiming they found the soul-condensing lotus first and accusing Yunshin of trying to seize it by force. They argue that his actions are completely unreasonable, but Yunshin, wreathed in intimidating lightning, simply declares that he is the only logic that matters. He tells them that since the lotus is just sitting there, anyone can take it, and even if it were in their hands, he would still claim it. He gives them a choice: hand it over and leave immediately, or die. To be honest, it isn't much of a choice at all. The power gap leaves the 2 cultivators trembling with silent rage, but just as they prepare to retreat, one of them spots something in the distance. The man points frantically behind Yunshin, shouting for him to look because someone else is already harvesting the soul-condensing lotus. Yunshin sneers, assuming it's a pathetic trick to get him to turn his back so they can launch a sneak attack. He mocks them for using such a childish ploy, asking if they truly take him for some naive, inexperienced boy. However, the voice of his master, Shen Xinglan, suddenly rings out, urgently warning him that someone really is taking the lotus. Yunshin's expression pales as he whips his head around, only to catch a fleeting glimpse of a disappearing back. The soul-condensing lotus has vanished, and in this moment, Yunshin's composure completely breaks as he begins to shake with pure rage. First the soul-nourishing jade, then the phoenix blood, and now even the lotus has been snatched away, which, naturally, is quite a lot to handle. Inside, Yunshin's fury is reaching a boiling point as he curses the audacity of anyone trying to snatch the soul-condensing lotus right from under his nose. He tells himself it is nothing but a delusional dream. Wreathed in lightning, he gives chase, while we see our protagonist let out a cold snort. By fully unleashing the Xing's secret technique, it doesn't take long at all for him to vanish completely from Yunshin's line of sight. A roar of pure frustration echoes from far behind, but he simply smiles and tucks away the lotus, his speed never faltering for a second. He notes that Yunshin is simply too slow before heading straight for the entrance leading to the 2nd level of the secret realm. Left behind, Yunshin stands pale and utterly defeated, eventually calling out to his master in a voice trembling with shock. He admits he lost the trail, unable to keep up with the stranger's speed or even identify who his mysterious rival actually was. Shen Xinglan's voice carries a hint of helplessness as she tells Yunshin not to lose heart over this setback. She senses a familiar aura, concluding that this person must be the same one who snatched the phoenix blood earlier. All of this was supposed to be guided by the Great Eye Divine Lord's map, but he has no idea that our protagonist doesn't need a map at all. Possessing the exact coordinates of the Great Eye Divine Art, he manages to arrive at the burial site one step ahead of Chu Feng. In the center of the cave sits a skeleton in a meditative pose. If he isn't mistaken, these are the remains of the Great Eye Divine Lord himself. We are reminded that the Lingxi secret realm was once a complete world, and the Divine Lord was a top-tier powerhouse within it. It is a somber thought that such a master died here, so he offers a respectful bow to the bones, greeting the senior with proper etiquette. His gaze then falls upon a jade slip, which, as it turns out, contains the long-lost records of the Great Eye Divine Art. He takes the slip and prepares to leave, only to run directly into Chu Feng, whose brow furrows the moment their eyes meet. When asked if they've met, he simply shakes his head, claiming he doesn't know him before calmly brushing past the man. Now that the divine art is safely in his hands, he has no desire to engage in any unnecessary or messy conflicts. Chu Feng stares at the retreating back with a sudden, intense feeling of unease before rushing into the cave to investigate. He searches every corner only to find nothing, realizing with a curse that the divine art was likely taken by the man he just passed. A sudden flash of realization strikes Chu Feng as he remembers that he had encountered this man before in the Hongduan Mountains. He recalls that when the stranger passed him back then, that ancient spirit beast he had been searching for was perched right on his shoulder. Now that even the great-eye divine art has been snatched away, he wonders if their fates are simply cursed to clash. Meanwhile, we see our protagonist reach the lowest level of the secret realm. He is searching for that all-important remnant of the saint body, noting how the rock walls are embedded with glowing blue ores. The light casts a ghostly glow over the space, and in the center of this silent land, the massive remains of a powerful body lie waiting. Half of the torso is embedded in a golden stone pedestal surrounded by ancient runes, but just as he prepares to step forward, he is not alone. A handsome young man in black robes appears before him. This is none other than Lin Chenxiao, known as the Duke of Absolute Evil. Lin Chenxiao is smugly examining the saint body, thinking to himself that this is exactly what the Lin family has been yearning for. He notes that despite the passage of years, the flesh hasn't decayed, and he declares it now belongs to him. Hearing this, our protagonist's gaze turns cold. The Duke of Absolute Evil is a sworn enemy of the Lin family, and it seems he is determined to block anything they desire. The family had hoped to find this saint body to help his younger brother, who possesses the desolate ancient saint body, increase his strength. Since Lin Chenxiao has found it, he clearly has no intention of letting go, but as he reaches for the remains, the situation changes instantly. Our protagonist vanishes, reappearing beside him in a heartbeat to deliver a heavy punch directly to his face. Lin Chenxiao's face twists from the impact, and a mouthful of teeth and blood is sent flying through the air. He is sent tumbling like a ragdoll until he slams into the stone wall, struggling to stand amidst the rubble. His chest heaves with rage as he curses the audacity of the sneak attack, and without another word, he begins to manifest his power. He activates his special physique, the Absolute Destruction Demon Body, as dark purple flames and demonic energy surge toward our protagonist. In response, he summons the Renwang Seal, causing a massive golden palm and a towering phantom to appear in the air. The seal strikes with terrifying force, smashing Lin Chenxiao deep into the rock wall once more as he coughs up blood. It is only now that Lin Chenxiao finally gets a clear look at his opponent's face, his pupils shrinking in shock as he gasps out the name, Lin Yu. In a flash of movement, Lin Yu is suddenly beside him, grabbing Lin Chenxiao by the throat and hoisting him out of the stone crater. His voice is flat as he notes it has been a long time, and without another word, he begins to circulate the heaven-swallowing demonic art. As he begins to devour the Absolute Destruction Demon Body, Lin Chenxiao feels his very source of power being violently stripped away. Terrified, Lin Chenxiao screams, demanding to know what kind of technique can swallow his demonic energy and begging him to stop. Lin Yu watches his face grow pale and withered with cold indifference, and in his panic, Lin Chenxiao desperately calls him Brother Lin. He claims he has learned his lesson and swears never to cause trouble again, but Lin Yu only responds with a chilling, knowing smile. He tells him that he isn't sorry. He simply knows he is about to die. Soon, a chorus of agonizing screams echoes through the cave. Ultimately, the demonic physique is completely refined, and our protagonist's strength surges forward, reaching the 5th level of the Divine Palace realm. After collecting the saint body remains, he leaves the lowest level, only to suddenly feel a distinct sense of spiritual rejection. This is the sign that his time is up, as every cultivator is permitted a maximum of only 1 day within the Lingxi secret realm. Sure enough, it isn't long before he is automatically expelled from the realm, and when he finally regains his senses, he finds himself back in his familiar small courtyard, where Manhwa has already laid out breakfast on the stone table. He takes a deep breath and sits down, silently checking the daily intelligence. First, that Goofing City is the ancestral origin of the Lin family. By obtaining the ancestral key, one can uncover the family's hidden secrets. The second piece of news involves a heavily injured saint body. This individual has already arrived in Goofing City, and hearing the first report, Lin Yu feels a sudden jolt of excitement. He knew the city's history, of course, but he never suspected a secret was hidden here, let alone an ancestral key. He pauses for a moment to consider the second piece of intelligence regarding the wounded, desolate ancient saint body. He wonders if it could be his exceptionally talented younger brother, Lin Chun, who might be coming to Goofing City to visit him. Despite the massive gap in their status within the family, the two of them have always maintained a very close relationship. Just as he and Manhwa are about to begin their breakfast, a deep, magnetic voice suddenly rings out, calling him Big Brother. You certainly seem to be enjoying yourself, a man remarks as he appears before the table, dressed in a moon-white brocade robe. A black jade pendant hangs from his waist, and Manhwa gasps in surprise, asking second young master Lin Chun why he has suddenly arrived. She offers to fetch another set of utensils, and after Lin Chun nods his thanks, Lin Yu takes a sip of porridge and looks up at him. He notes that a busy man like Lin Chun wouldn't visit just for fun, asking what the real reason is, though Lin Chun remains calm. Lin Chen asks if he can't simply visit his brother, but Lin Yu points out that he is the pride of the Lin family. He is far too busy for social calls, and the family would never let him visit an insignificant person without a specific purpose. Hearing this, Lin Chen loses his composure and hurriedly explains that the family hasn't abandoned him and that he has come to deliver 2 gifts. He pulls out a jade bottle containing the Azure Sky Dragon leaf, explaining that the primary material is a treasure he found in a secret realm. The family provided additional herbs to complete the refinement, creating a potion designed to enhance a cultivator's natural talent. It might finally allow Lin Yu to truly begin his path of cultivation, but our protagonist only stares at him with a serious expression. He asks if the injuries Lin Chen is carrying were sustained while searching for that primary material, catching his brother completely off guard. Lin Chen hadn't expected him to see through his condition, so he tries to brush it off as a minor scratch, but Lin Yu remains silent. He simply keeps his eyes fixed on his brother until Lin Chen, feeling guilty, pulls out a jade pendant to quickly change the subject. He explains that he found this pendant during the ancestral trials and mentions the rumors of a hidden secret within Goofing City. Since this pendant is supposedly the key, their father specifically asked him to bring it to Lin Yu to see if he can uncover anything. Looking at the pendant, Lin Yu's heart begins to race. This must be the ancestral key mentioned in his daily intelligence report. He accepts both the potion and the jade pendant without hesitation, and the 2 brothers spend the next half hour catching up. Eventually, Lin Chen prepares to leave with some reluctance, but after he takes a few steps, Lin Yu calls out for him to wait. He tosses a storage bag to Lin Chen, who catches it with a puzzled look, only for his eyes to widen in shock once he sees what is inside. As Lin Chen begins to stammer in disbelief, Lin Yu simply places a finger to his lips and shakes his head, signaling him to keep it a secret. A bright smile breaks across Lin Chen's face as he realizes his older brother is far more cunning than anyone ever suspected. Inside that storage bag lies the remains of the sacred body, a treasure that caused quite a stir before the Lingxi secret realm opened. The Duke of Evil had openly provoked the Lin family back then, claiming he had found the exact location of these remains. It was a bitter pill for the family to swallow, especially since Lin Chenxiao never returned from the realm. Yet here the treasure is, in Lin Yu's hands. One can only imagine the struggle it took to get it, and so, after seeing his brother off, Lin Yu begins to study the jade pendant. He places a single drop of essence blood onto the surface, and suddenly, the ancient carvings on the jade seem to spring to life. It emits a dazzling light that causes the very space around him to twist and distort, while a flood of information enters his mind. This Earth Territory Jade is actually a key that can open spatial nodes within Goofing City, allowing one to travel instantly across vast distances. It covers all 3,000 provinces of the primordial ancient realm, though each use of the jade requires a 3-day cooling period. Lin Yu takes a sharp breath at the revelation. To be honest, mastering these spatial nodes makes him feel like the world is at his fingertips. He wonders if this means he can truly go anywhere, considering a single province like Xianzhou is already unimaginably vast. It would take an ordinary person an entire lifetime to walk from its north to its south, and there are 3,000 such provinces. The scale of this world is truly boundless, so large that even a powerhouse like the Lin family has its limits. Their prestige is confined to the neighboring provinces, while those further away have likely never even heard the name of the Lin family. Most people would never cross such distances in their lives, yet these spatial nodes span across all 3,000 provinces. He marvels at whichever ancestor created such a system, and right then and there, he makes a firm decision. Since using the Earth Territory Jade requires a 3-day wait between trips, he needs to plan his first journey carefully. For now, he decides to deal with the treasures he gathered from the secret realm and test the Jade's power tomorrow morning. With a simple thought, we see him enter the Void Realm, where he begins to lay out the rare treasures he doesn't personally need. He clears his throat and, mimicking the local street vendors, starts calling out to passers-by to come see his ancient soul-nurturing jade. He calls out about soul-nurturing lotuses and various other heavenly treasures for everyone to see, while on the other side of the market, we find a man in a black robe who is currently feeling quite excited. This is none other than the Child of Fortune, Yun Shun. He tells his master that although they missed out on the phoenix blood and the soul-nurturing lotus, they still gathered enough treasures to earn 10,000 spirit stones. Now he can finally buy soul-nurturing items for his master, Shen Xinglan, who replies flatly that while he is thoughtful, this is only the beginning. She explains that he needs to spend the next few days in a dream state, practicing hard to fully master the techniques she taught him. Combined with the heavenly treasures, his strength is bound to see a massive leap. Yun Shen nods, insisting it is simply his duty. He promises to cultivate diligently over the coming days, and shortly after, we see him begin his search for those specific soul-nurturing items. But just then, the sound of Lin Yu's street vending cries reaches his ears, causing Yun Shen to pause and listen. He can't help but laugh out loud, telling his master that their luck is better than expected, as he thought finding such items would take much longer. He didn't expect someone to be selling them right here, though as it turns out, he won't be laughing for very long. Yunshin quickly pushes through the crowd to reach the stall, where he sees not only the soul-nurturing jade, but also the soul-nurturing lotus. In this moment, he becomes absolutely certain that this is the person who snatched those treasures away from him back in the secret realm. Linyu, playing along, claims he has taken a liking to his fellow cultivator and wants to get to know him, which causes Yunshin's hair to stand on end. Linyu tells him to get lost and stop being so disgusting, and at this point, the veins on Yunshin's forehead begin to bulge with rage. He can no longer hold back and starts cursing, asking Linyu who he thinks he is and demanding to know his true identity. He threatens to kill him once and for all, while Linyu maintains a facade of being nothing but kind-hearted. He continues to insist on his own good intentions, acting as though he is the victim of a terrible misunderstanding. It is a performance that would be impressive if it weren't so incredibly frustrating for poor Yunshin. Linyu keeps repeating how well-meaning he is, layering on the irony until it's almost thick enough to touch. He laments that despite his kindness, he is being harassed and insulted, which, to be perfectly honest, is a bit of a stretch even for him. Yunshin roars, asking if Linyu is an idiot and demanding he reveal his true identity if he isn't a coward. He tells him to hurry up, but as their heated argument continues to escalate, we see that it has attracted a large crowd of onlookers, a perfect opportunity that Linyu seizes immediately by ignoring Yunshin. He begins shouting for everyone to come see his heavenly treasures, causing Yunshin to snap and start swinging his fists and kicking wildly. Of course, since they aren't physical bodies in this realm, the attacks have no effect, and the crowd turns their attention to the stall. People begin buying items, and one cultivator even starts promoting the soul-nurturing jade and lotus for him, noting how rare they are. He remarks that the quality is excellent and the price is fair, while his friend beside him quickly agrees with the sentiment. The friend mentions he had been worried about where to find such soul-nurturing items and is thrilled to have stumbled upon them here. A man in a black robe takes a particular interest in the soul-nurturing jade, but just as he prepares to make a deal, the jade suddenly ends up in Yunshin's hands. His master's soul is weakening, and the lotus alone won't be enough to save her. Only the soul-nurturing jade can truly restore her spirit, and given the current situation, he knows he has to act fast. If he doesn't secure the jade right now, someone else will surely buy it and leave him with nothing. So, despite his deep resentment toward Linyu, he is forced to buy it, just as the black-robed man speaks up in annoyance. The man asks why a pervert is competing with him for the jade, prompting Yunshin to scream back that his whole family are the perverts. He was already furious with Linyu, but being labeled a pervert by a stranger is the final straw that breaks his composure. Linyu settles in to enjoy the show, only to see Yunshin vanish from the dream realm in a fit of pure rage. We return to the physical world, where Yunshin opens his eyes in an inn, his suppressed grievances finally exploding all at once. Not only did he fail to learn Linyu's identity, but he was also nearly driven to madness by the man's constant taunting. To make matters worse, he is now a pervert in the eyes of the public, a level of humiliation he has never had to endure before. Yunshin wipes his face, reminding himself that men shouldn't cry, but he vows that Linyu will eventually pay for this. Yunshin vows that one day he will uncover the truth, while back at the stall, Linyu's heavenly treasures have already sold out completely. After that, Linyu exits the dream realm and returns home to use the Azure Dragon liquid, drinking the entire medicinal solution in one go. The liquid transforms into a scalding red current that washes through his body, forcing foul-smelling sweat and impurities out through his pores. As a pool of black water collects on the floor and night falls, he slowly opens his eyes, a golden light flashing within them. His skin is now as smooth as jade, and his meridians have become wider and clearer, allowing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to pour into his body at an unprecedented speed. He can't help but smile, witnessing the miraculous effects of the Azure Dragon liquid. It has truly transformed his cultivation talent, and his next step is to enter the first level of the dream realm to practice the Great Eye Art. He enters the dream realm to begin his meditative training, as the Great Eye Art is a specialized technique for strengthening one's spirit. Following the mental path of the technique, strands of light emerge from the acupoint between his brows and circulate within his sea of consciousness. As the technique operates, the light gradually condenses into a hazy star map, and by the 36th rotation, things get interesting. He suddenly feels a violent tremor in his sea of consciousness as a blinding white light bursts forth from the center of his forehead. The once hazy star map becomes crystal clear, its celestial trajectories turning profound after a full night of training within the dream. He opens his eyes feeling refreshed and mentally clear. To be honest, he is now likely immune to most spirit-based attacks. Finally, he checks in with Manhwa, letting her know that he needs to head out for a period of 3 days. He then takes out the Earth Territory Jade Pendant, choosing a random teleportation this time rather than designating a specific destination. Injecting his mana into the jade, he opens his eyes to find himself in an unfamiliar land, where today's first piece of intelligence appears. In a village called Night Village within the ancient Boatlands, the longevity milk they brew is a delicacy with immense benefits for cultivators. We see the location of Night Village provided, followed by the second piece of intelligence regarding the interior of the Green Mist Forest. A black snake containing dragon blood is currently evolving into a flood dragon, and many cultivators plan to kill it while it is weak. They intend to refine its dragon blood, and as he notes the detailed location, he can't help but marvel at the system's timely prompts. The intelligence updates based on his strength and surroundings, confirming that he has indeed arrived in the ancient Boatlands. He decides he simply cannot miss out on the dragon blood, even as the Green Mist Forest becomes shrouded in a dense, ethereal haze. The branches of ancient, towering trees interlace overhead, cutting off all noise from the outside world. Only the sound of his own footsteps echoes through the misty woods, until suddenly, a roar of absolute fury breaks the silence. He realizes the battle has already begun and quickens his pace, rushing toward the deepest part of the Green Mist Forest. Before long, we see a flood dragon that has just completed its transformation, its electric blue body coiling above the sea of trees. It glares down at the cultivators below, 7 burly men clad in beast skins with bodies built like iron towers. These are the people of Yi Village, their expressions as grim, as iron as they brandish their weapons. Lin Yu watches, his interest piqued. He notices an 8th person fighting the dragon, a tiny child who looks barely 3 years old, yet possesses incredible power. The sheer combat strength of this toddler leaves him speechless. To be honest, seeing such power in a 3-year-old is quite unsettling. Is he some kind of monster? While Lin Yu watches in shock, the battle in the clearing reaches a fever pitch. The black snake exhausted its energy during the transformation, and though it succeeded, it is now in an extremely weakened state. These 8 people took advantage of this moment to launch a sneak attack, dealing heavy blows that the dragon could otherwise have resisted. The village chief, an elder with a goatee, growls that the dragon is at its limit and urges everyone to give their all. He slams his white bone staff into the dragon's flank, drawing a scream of agony from the massive creature. The others follow his lead, their weapons raining down on the dragon until it lets out one final, mournful cry. The dragon crashes to the ground, its life force completely extinguished, leaving behind a massive, silent corpse. The goateed elder lets out a long sigh of relief, while the other men collapse right where they stand to rest. They were successful, but the cost in energy was immense, though the little child still seems remarkably energetic. As the boy examines the body, Lin Yu watches from the shadows, knowing that this dragon's corpse still contains a trace of true dragon blood. He knows he can refine dragon blood from this, but the question is how to get it. Suddenly, a lean, agile figure wielding a war blade appears. The figure lunges toward one of the Yi village men, the blade moving with terrifying speed and overwhelming pressure. One of the villagers doesn't even have time to dodge before the blade slices through him, cutting his body clean in two. The sheer power of that single strike is staggering. The little child stares in horror at the fallen villager, crying out for his third uncle as the man's life fades instantly. Meanwhile, the agile attacker doesn't stop for a second. He launches another assault on the next villager, prompting the goateed elder to shout a desperate warning for everyone to be careful. He identifies the attackers as the brats from Mu Village, just as a chorus of furious roars erupts from the forest, calling to slaughter them all. Over a dozen men from Mu Village charge out of the shadows, and in an instant, a chaotic and bloody battle breaks out. The two groups clash with such intensity that the world seems to darken, but the Yi Village men are at a severe disadvantage after the dragon hunt. Their stamina is completely spent, and with Mu Village having the advantage in numbers, the Yi villagers are simply no match for them. They fall into a desperate retreat as the tide of battle turns against them. The goateed elder growls in bitter frustration. He wonders if the dragon they worked so hard to kill must really be handed over to their enemies. But looking at their current state, they are in no condition to fight the Mu villagers. To be honest, if they stay any longer, they will likely all die right here. With no other choice, the elder orders a retreat, and we see the Mu village warriors erupt into cheers of victory. Bright smiles spread across their faces. They have secured a dragon's corpse without breaking a sweat, which is quite a stroke of luck. Having dealt a heavy blow to their rivals while gaining such a prize, this is undoubtedly a massive victory for them. The Mu village chief beams with joy, ordering his men to drag the dragon back to their village, and the villagers eagerly comply. However, just as they move to claim their prize, they realize the massive dragon corpse has completely vanished into thin air. The Mu villagers scramble to investigate the theft, while Lin Yu, who snatched the body during the chaos, makes his escape. He quickly leaves the green mist forest behind and finds a secluded spot to finally bring out the dragon's corpse. Lin Yu whispers to himself that since this dragon can be refined into dragon blood, he will use the heaven-swallowing magic bow to consume it directly. He sits cross-legged, placing the dragon's massive corpse before him, and begins to circulate the power of the bow with his hands in a ritual seal. A powerful suction force erupts from within his body, and we see the flesh and blood of the dragon's corpse begin to change. The body starts to wither and shrink at a speed visible to the naked eye, as wisps of pure energy transform into a stream of azure air. This energy flows continuously into his body, causing his frame to tremble slightly. After all, the power of this dragon is incredibly overbearing. The intense pain forces him to grit his teeth, but with a resilient will, he continues to refine this terrifying power within himself. After a full day and night have passed, the massive dragon corpse is reduced to a hollow shell, and Lin Yu slowly opens his eyes. A powerful aura, far exceeding his previous strength, soars into the sky as his cultivation breaks through repeatedly, reaching the second level of the true spirit realm. Most importantly, when he circulates his mana at full power, his body is instantly covered by a layer of fine, protective scales. His entire body was suddenly enveloped in a brilliant golden light, causing his defensive power to skyrocket. And here we find today's first piece of intelligence. The sword god mountain disciple, Yi Gaing, will obtain an ancient sword of immense origin at a weapon shop tomorrow. This will be a major catalyst for his rise to the absolute peak. As for the location of the ancient sword, we see the details unfold. Today's second piece of intelligence. An auction will be held this afternoon at the Xingyuan Chamber of Commerce. The value of one particular precious herb there is severely underestimated, as it is actually the remnant root of an undying medicine. The ancestor of the Liang family used it to extend his life by 2,000 years and return to his peak. Lin Yu decides that the ancient sword must be seized. And that undying medicine? Well, that is a legendary existence, far more precious than even a saint medicine. Even a mere remnant root is no small matter, and since its value is currently being overlooked, it is a chance he cannot miss. The price will surely be a bargain, making it the perfect time to acquire it. However, since the auction isn't until the afternoon, he decides to head toward Yi Village. He is quite curious to see what makes their famous beast milk so special. We find ourselves at a very ancient village where the inhabitants live by hunting, a tradition passed down through generations. Because of this, everyone from the elderly to the children is incredibly strong, despite the heavy losses they suffered from the Mu village ambush. The village had suffered many casualties, and now the entire Yi village was in a state of war, prepared to fight Mu village to the death. Lin Yu didn't enter the village immediately. Instead, he waited for the men to depart for battle before quietly slipping inside. The air was thick with a rich, milky fragrance, and by following that scent, he eventually found his way to a specific house. Inside, a pot of beast milk was being simmered with special medicinal herbs, a sight that made him sigh in genuine admiration. This milk was truly extraordinary. Just one breath of its steam was enough to refresh the spirit, sparking a sudden idea in his mind. He promptly swept the entire pot of milk into his storage ring, but at that exact moment, a small, high-pitched voice called out, "Big brother, that pot of milk is mine." He looked down to see a young boy who looked as delicate and cute as a porcelain doll. The child was dragging a large gourd taller than himself, staring at the spot where his breakfast had just vanished. To be honest, it was a bit tragic. This little one was actually the 8th person from the village who had helped besiege the dragon earlier. Caught red-handed, Lin Yu felt a flicker of embarrassment. He shamelessly told the boy he wouldn't know how to appreciate such milk anyway, so he'd drink it for him, leaving behind some snacks as compensation. He vanished in a flash, leaving the little boy to stare at his empty stove. For the child, it felt as though the sky had fallen. The boy had no idea what these snacks were. He only knew his precious milk had been stolen right before his eyes, and he was going to be hungry. Soon, a loud, wailing cry echoed throughout the entire village, bringing the remaining residents running to see what had happened. When they realized the little one's milk had been snatched, some of the villagers were absolutely furious and began shouting curses. They demanded to know what kind of a moral bastard would steal milk from a child, swearing they would make the thief pay if caught. The little boy sobbed, likely thinking he'd never forgive the thief, but then the villagers noticed the snacks Lin Yu had left behind. Their attitudes shifted instantly, and they began defending the thief, noting that since he left snacks, he wasn't entirely without a conscience. They decided to simply cook another pot for the boy, setting up a large cauldron to begin the long brewing process once more. However, the little boy's stomach was already growling with hunger, and he found himself in a rather miserable position. Not only was his milk gone, but the villagers weren't even seeking justice for him, causing him to throw a tantrum that nearly brought the village down. This led the villagers to complain about Lin Yu once again, calling him utterly shameless for taking the entire pot. Meanwhile, our protagonist had no idea that his theft of the beast milk had caused such chaos in Yi Village. He simply stared at the liquid with curiosity. He decided to see what made it so special, lifting the pot to take a sip. Immediately, a wave of intense heat rose from his stomach and surged through his entire body. To his great surprise, the effect was quite remarkable. He hadn't expected the milk to have such power. It didn't just strengthen the physical body, it actually improved one's innate talent. No wonder that little boy was such a monster. He decided that after the auction, he would have to go back for another pot. It was truly unexpected that a tiny village could brew milk with such potent effects. Although compared to the azure dragon leaf, the effect was much weaker. However, that leaf was incredibly rare, while this milk could be brewed pot after pot. He whispered to himself that if he could just get the recipe, it would be a true treasure. We see him decide to return to Yi Village later. For now, he made his way directly to the Saint Source Chamber of Commerce. Every participant in the auction was given a black robe to conceal their face and identity. This was a safety measure for the cultivators, of course. Upon entering the hall, he found a quiet corner to sit in. Soon, the auction officially began. The first item up for bid was the gale-splitting palm, a top-tier martial technique. Many cultivators immediately began competing for it, but Lin Yu remained completely unmoved. After all, the techniques he practiced were already the finest in the world, so he had no interest in this palm style. He was here for one thing only. His target was the remnant root of the undying medicine. As the auction proceeded, item after item was presented to the crowd. He didn't place a single bid until a certain precious herb was finally brought out onto the auction stage. An elderly auctioneer introduced it as the coiled dragon root, a treasure that had grown for several hundred years. He claimed that consuming just a small piece of the root would keep a man's vitality overflowing for an entire day. It was, in his words, a divine tool for domestic harmony. The starting price was 3,000 spirit stones, with increments of 100. Numerous cultivators immediately began raising their bids, and in no time, the price of this coiled dragon root soared to 7,000 spirit stones. In the middle of the auction hall, a petite woman sat watching the tall figure beside her with a curious gaze. The benefits of this coiled dragon root were quite aggressive, and he told himself he had no need for such medicinal help, even if things were difficult lately. After all, what man would ever admit to such a weakness, especially when sitting right in front of his own niece? So, even though he was secretly salivating over the root, Liang Heng suppressed the urge to buy it, fearing his private secret might be exposed. He didn't expect his niece to suddenly suggest he bid on it, which, to be perfectly honest, made the situation rather awkward. Her voice was serious as she whispered, "Uncle, this precious medicine looks like a coiled dragon root on the surface, but it is actually a remnant root of an ancient medicine." Liang Heng's expression shifted instantly at those words. He didn't doubt her for a single second. You see, his niece, Liang Shi, was born with golden pupils that could see through the essence of all things. He felt a wave of relief wash over him. It turned out she hadn't discovered his little secret after all, but had found a genuine treasure instead. Since that was the case, he decided he had to have it. Without any further hesitation, Liang Heng made his move. He immediately called out a high price of 10,010 spirit stones, leaving the entire Great Tang auction hall in stunned silence. The elderly auctioneer grew visibly excited, shouting to the crowd, 10,010. Are there any higher bids? The bidder was likely a member of the Liang family, but he was determined to get those 3 stalks of pig undying grass at any cost. He raised his paddle and bid 11,010. Liang Heng countered immediately, raising the price to 12,010. This bidding war drew gasps from the audience, and everyone instinctively turned their gaze toward him. They were all waiting to see if he would keep going. With no other choice, he raised his voice again, 13,010. The entire hall was dumbfounded, while the auctioneer reached a peak of excitement. Just as Liang Heng prepared to bid again, a petite figure stopped him. Liang Shi stared at him with her golden pupils and whispered, "Uncle, I have checked him." She noted with cold indifference that his strength was only at the 2nd level of the true spirit realm. He had been given a chance to live, but he had refused to take it. Since that was the case, they decided not to follow any further, planning to deal with him once they left the auction. Liang Heng nodded in agreement. He let the man have it. Ultimately, the stranger purchased the coiled dragon root for 13,010 spirit stones, as he whispered to himself. The Liang family didn't place another bid, which meant they likely had their eyes on him. After storing the root in his ring, he didn't hesitate for a second. He turned and left immediately. He had no interest in the remaining items, and though others might see him as a fool for spending so much, he didn't care in the slightest. To be honest, this remnant root of an ancient medicine was worth far more than 13,000 spirit stones. It would be worth it even at 10 times the price. If he could actually grow a full plant from it, its value would be truly beyond measure. Seeing him depart, Liang Shi and Liang Heng also stood up and made their exit from the auction hall. After leaving the building, he headed straight for the city outskirts. Thanks to his cultivation of the Great Eye technique, his mental power had surged. His perception had improved so much that he quickly realized Liang Shi and Liang Heng were following him. Yes, he was being hunted. However, now that the ancient medicine was in his hands, getting into a fight with them served no purpose at all. He pretended to walk normally, continuing his pace. But the very moment he stepped through the city gates, whoosh, his figure vanished from the spot instantly. Liang Shi and Liang Heng quickened their pace and reached the gate in a hurry, only to find that they had already lost his trail. Liang Shi's eyes were filled with disbelief as she realized he had simply disappeared. Liang Heng was equally shocked. He certainly hadn't expected the man to possess such incredible speed. Liang Shi's voice was now thick with killing intent as she insisted that the remnant root was too special to let go. They had to take it back. Liang Heng lowered his head to think for a moment. "Xiao Shi, did you use your golden pupils to see his face clearly?" Liang Shi replied with a tone full of pride. The black robes of the Xinyuan auction might block others, but they couldn't hide anything from her. She had seen exactly what he looked like. At those words, a cold light flashed in Liang Heng's eyes. That was all he needed to hear. He decided to notify the family immediately to issue a pursuit order across the martial world. He told himself that no matter how fast the man was, he would never escape the grasp of the Liang family. It wouldn't take long at all. The Liang family's pursuit order was officially launched, and a massive number of cultivators began scouring the land for any trace of him. He had become quite the celebrity in Fulingin. After shaking off Liang Shi and Liang Hong, we see him return once more to Night Village. At this moment, the village was filled with the sound of relentless weeping. Everywhere we look, bodies are covered in white cloth. The battle between Night Village and Wood Village had been brutal, leaving both sides with heavy casualties. He whispered quietly to himself. Now that Night Village was immersed in grief, he felt it was the right time to talk. Soon, the villagers surrounded him. Their eyes were filled with suspicion. A tall, burly middle-aged man stepped directly in front of him and demanded to know who he was. The man asked what he wanted in Night Village, projecting a pressure as heavy as a mountain. He simply ignored the intimidation. He stated his purpose clearly. He was there to provide spirit stones to the village. However, he insisted on seeing the chief first. The middle-aged man gave him a long, searching look before turning to leave. It wasn't long before someone else appeared. An elderly man with a goatee walked toward him. This was the chief of Night Village, a man known as Yishan. Yishan narrowed his eyes, sizing him up. He asked why such a generous stranger would suddenly offer spirit stones to their village. He didn't beat around the bush. To be honest, he wanted their secret recipe for longevity milk, and he said so plainly. Yishan waved his hand in a flat refusal. The longevity milk recipe was a sacred secret of Night Village, never to be shared with outsiders. He claimed no amount of spirit stones could buy it and told him to leave. But he wasn't finished, trying a more emotional approach. He pointed out that they lived by hunting, yet with so many injured, they needed stones for medicine and couldn't go out to hunt. He asked how they expected to maintain their daily lives. Hearing this, Yishan wavered for a moment, but he still refused. The chief told him not to worry about their affairs. The recipe was not for sale, and it was time for him to go. Seeing that he was about to be kicked out, he shouted out a final offer, 100,000 spirit stones. Yishan froze in his tracks. The chief reacted quickly, trying his best to remain calm. He countered by demanding 150,000 spirit stones instead. The surrounding villagers gasped in unison. They all felt the chief had gone mad, asking so much for a single recipe. The chief had the audacity to ask for 150,000 spirit stones. He let a look of disappointment wash over his face, claiming the price was far too high. He explained that he only had 110,000 stones on him, and it seemed he wouldn't be able to purchase the longevity milk recipe after all. With those words, he turned to walk away. Seeing this, the anxious villagers looked toward Yishan, who quickly caved and agreed to the deal. Yishan called out for him to wait, accepting the lower offer. And just like that, he successfully obtained the secret recipe for the longevity milk. After the transaction, both sides were beaming with joy. To Night Village, 110,000 spirit stones was an absolute fortune. It was enough to support the grieving families and ensure no one would worry about the future. Meanwhile, he now had a steady supply of milk to drink. His physical constitution and cultivation talent would now improve continuously. As they talked, the village chief, Yishan, finally realized the truth. He was the very same person who had stolen the pot of milk and made the little one cry. But now, he had become an honored guest of Night Village. That was all in the past now. Yishan prepared to host him with a fresh batch of longevity milk that was currently brewing over the fire. The sweet scent of milk drifted through the air, where a tiny figure stood guard by the large pot. We see a chubby, pink-faced little boy. His face was full of anticipation because he was finally about to have his milk. Last time, the little one hadn't been there to guard the pot. Because of that, a bad man had snatched it away. This time, he was determined not to let such a tragedy happen again. Just then, footsteps approached. It was Chief Yishan, who picked up the little boy with a doting smile. He asked his precious grandson what he was doing standing guard there. The little one replied in a soft, milky voice, telling his grandfather that a bad man had stolen his milk last time. He declared that he wouldn't let anyone take it this time. If any other 3-year-old said this, it would be quite funny, wouldn't it? But the little one was an exception. He actually had the power to protect that milk. Yishan felt a bit awkward and cleared his throat. He explained that an important guest had arrived and he wanted to serve him some milk. The little one smiled obediently and agreed. The boy brought over a large bowl, but as he prepared to scoop the milk, he hesitated. To be honest, he felt the bowl was a bit too big. The little one glanced at his grandfather and swapped it for a smaller bowl, yet even that felt like he was giving away too much. Finally, he brought out a tiny cup and filled it to the brim. It was just enough for a single sip, which tells you everything you need to know. The little one held up the tiny cup filled with longevity milk and told his grandfather it was ready. Yishan looked at him, deeply moved by the gesture. He praised his grandson for being so sensible. Then, after a quick pat on the boy's head, Yishan simply picked up the entire pot and walked away. As the little boy watched his grandfather leave with the pot, his world crumbled once again. With a loud sob, the tiny cup slipped from his hands and hit the ground. You see, the little one intended for Yishan to use that tiny cup to serve the guest, but Yishan had completely misunderstood his intentions. By taking the whole pot, he left the boy heartbroken. Meanwhile, our protagonist was about to enjoy as much longevity milk as he could drink. After a long while, he bowed to Yishan to take his leave, thanking the chief for the hospitality. Yishan smiled warmly, telling him it was no trouble at all. He invited him to return whenever he liked. It was a pleasant exchange for everyone involved, except, of course, for the poor little boy. As the guest turned to leave, the boy suddenly recognized him as the bad man who had snatched his milk before. He vowed to get even when he grew up. Early the next morning, we find our protagonist focused on his next move. He knew the Liang family had stolen the 5-colored soil, and because of that theft, their fate was bound to be quite miserable. In Feline County, the Liang family acted like untouchable local tyrants. However, compared to the Sword God Mountain, the strongest power in Guizhou, the Liang family was absolutely nothing. By uncovering the secret of the stolen soil, he essentially held their lives in his hands. His plan was simple, yet effective. He would secure the 5-colored soil for himself first, and only then would he leak the secret to the world. A classic double-cross, really. He whispered to himself that it was time to visit the weapon shop. He needed to get his hands on that extraordinary ancient sword first. We follow him as he heads to the Balian weapon shop, where the air is thick with the heavy, sharp scent of metal. Rows of blades hung along the walls. Behind the counter stood a burly, imposing man who looked like he knew his way around a forge. The man was busy polishing a rusted blade. This was Tai Sanhu, the owner of the shop. He looked up as our protagonist entered. Sanhu asked what kind of weapon the guest was looking for. He replied casually, saying he was just looking around for the moment. He looked down to wipe his blade once more, before turning his gaze toward the main building in the corner. It contained a dozen or so discarded longswords that were nearly scrap metal, but as he placed his hand on one of them, he felt something different. He immediately felt a powerful force of repulsion, but he tightened his grip on the hilt and pulled the sword out from the main building. He asked the owner for the price, causing Tai Sanhu to frown as he examined the blade, wondering if he had even forged it himself. The owner was genuinely confused, certain the sword wasn't there yesterday. Perhaps, he told himself, his memory was simply failing him. Since it had been gathering dust in a corner, Sanhu assumed it couldn't be worth much and simply held up 5 fingers. He told him he could take it for 5 spirit stones. But just then, an anxious voice rang out, demanding to buy that very sword. Without missing a beat, our protagonist tossed the 5 spirit stones to Tai Sanhu to finalize the deal. With the sword already in his hand, he knew that arguing with the newcomer, Yi Gaing, would be a complete waste of time. So, with the transaction complete, he turned and ran. Seeing this, Yi Gaing chased after him like a blade unsheathed, calling him a scoundrel. Gaing thought it was pure delusion for anyone to think they could escape him. He had come to this shop specifically because of a tip. He heard an ancient sword from Sword God Mountain had appeared here, only to find someone had snatched it first. To be honest, he was furious. Judging by the stranger's quick reaction, Gaing was certain the man knew the sword's true value. Naturally, he couldn't let him get away. Yi Gaing refused to let a relic of his sect fall into an outsider's hands. Meanwhile, Tai Sanhu's expression shifted with growing doubt. Watching the scene unfold while clutching his 5 stones, the blacksmith began to wonder if he had just made a terrible mistake. He tried to brush it off since he hadn't even forged the sword, yet he couldn't help wondering what it was actually worth. Tai Sanhu's brow furrowed in deep curiosity. A moment later, the sound of footsteps returned, and he looked up to see a familiar face. We see Yi Gaing returning to the shop with a dark, somber expression. He had been so close to the legendary ancient sword. It was practically within his reach, yet it had been intercepted at the last second. It was a bitter pill to swallow, really. Hoping to find some clue about the thief's identity, Yi Gaing turned to the owner and asked in a cold, piercing voice,